Well, hi, welcome to episode 4 of Thinking Through Theologically. I don't know about you guys, I'm having fun doing this, and I hope that you're learning some things. Thank you for your feedback and your comments. Just right at the front, like, share, comment if you'd like. Also, you can join my YouTube channel where you can watch all the previous ones as well. And so perhaps like and subscribe on that as well. Share it with your friends if you think anybody might benefit from this. And don't worry, I'm not trying to go viral, but I just thinking, sometimes people can benefit from these things. Anyway, I want to start by kind of framing a scenario in your mind just to help with the point I'm going to make. So imagine my wife and I, Wendy, going on a trip, going on a cruise, for example, or whatever, and being in a foreign place, and we lose track of each other. We can't find each other. And time goes by, I become concerned. I call the police. I can't find my wife. The police come and they ask me, can you give me a description of your wife? I say, sure, absolutely. I'll give you a description of my wife. Her eyes are doves, and her hair is like a flock of goats descending from the hills of Gilead. Her teeth are like a flock of sheep, just freshly shorn, coming up from being washed. Her lips are like scarlet ribbon, and her temples are like the halves of a pomegranate. Her neck is like the Tower of David built with stones. Oh, and her nose is like a tower of Lebanon, which looks over Damascus. Now, that's totally ludicrous, right? And by the way, I just read a description in the Song of Solomon, like a description of Solomon's wife. If the police officer were trying to draw a sketch, he would likely end up with something like a Picasso out of this, where everything's out of place or out of proportion. Now, why is this so ludicrous? Some of you may remember, back in the 60s, there was a TV show called Dragnet. And when the police officers would ask people for information, one of the phrases they used it all quite commonly, "Ma'am, just give me the facts, ma'am. Just the facts, ma'am." And so the police officer asks me to describe Wendy. He's wanting just the facts. And I did, but I did it poetically. And we would never use the genre of poetry in a situation that calls for specific, accurate data. If you went to the hospital with pain in your stomach and the doctor asked you what you ate last night and you began to describe, well, the texture of the salmon was just so velvety, like being wrapped in a blanket in front of a fireplace. The doctor doesn't care the texture of the salmon. He just wants to know what you ate, right? And so genre becomes this style of writing. And different genres present in different ways, and different genres are understood or interpreted in different ways. And the Bible is written in numerous different genres or styles. And we need to take those into account when we study the Bible. So you have things like historical narrative, law, the law of Moses, poetry, wisdom literature, prophecy, parables, epistles or letters, and apocalyptic writing, right? Like the book of Revelation and some things in the Old Testament as well. These are some of the major styles or genres in the Bible. And you need to take them into account when you're studying. Okay, so for example, if you were to go to Revelation, which is apocalyptic writing, and you were to read Revelation chapter 5, verses 5 and 6, this is the description of Jesus you would get. Jesus is a lion that looks like a dead lamb standing up. He has 7 horns and he has 7 eyes. Now, if you try to picture that, that's not my picture of Jesus. Like when I think of if people say picture Jesus, I don't picture a lion that looks like a dead lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes, right? And oh, by the way, and a 2-edged sword comes out of his mouth. So we know, like, this is very extreme. It's easy to recognize this as allegorical or symbolic, and that these passages use metaphors and they use all of this descriptive language that are symbolic of true characteristics of Jesus, but it's not the description that is the characteristic, it's the point being made by the description. But sometimes in the world of Bible interpretation, we become guilty of either trying to over-literalize a passage, something that is meant to be symbolic, but we force it into being literal. We can come up with some funky theology that way. Or we can have a tendency to over-allegorize a passage that is meant to be interpreted more literally. So there is some real wisdom and some real discipline in approaching Scripture in these kinds of ways. So the Psalms are full of poetry. There's prophecy in it. The Psalms are full of emotion. And we can take a psalm that we like and apply it literally as a promise. And then we'll take a psalm that we don't like, such as a lament, and we'll limit its scope or make it symbolic. We'll say, this psalm says this, and I like that, so I'm going to make that a factual, literal promise for me. And this psalm here, I don't like that, so let's call that one symbolic. Or we'll say, this one's Old Testament, and this one's New Testament. And we play around with these things. We need to be careful that we don't apply just the facts, ma'am, to a scripture that is not meant to be that way, especially something that is poetic or prophetic. We need to have the tools. We need to have the context. Usually the Bible is very good at interpreting itself. It will provide frames of reference to interpret symbolism. There's a lot of that in the Bible. It takes work. It takes effort. You look at the parables, for example. Parables, the genre of parables in those days were designed to drive home, generally, were designed to drive home one single point. And most of the details in a parable are there to support the story to make one point. The details are not there to be interpreted as each little detail representing something allegorical or something spiritual or whatever. You know, I was reading this parable and the main point is this, but this represents this, and this represents this, and this represents this. You can end up with all kinds of wonky ideas when you do that. Now, you know, there is symbolism in things and there can be sometimes layers in things, but we need to always make our anchor point understanding the genre that is being written in that context. So the next time that you study or that you read, ask yourself what genre you're reading. If you're reading the Psalms, or if you're reading, you know, the Song of Solomon, or if you're reading, you know, the book of Genesis, which is historical narrative, or you're reading the book of Romans, which is what they say is epistolary. If you're reading something like that, then you approach those things differently in the same way that you would write an email differently depending on who you were writing it to. And if you were writing an email to your wife celebrating what you had for dinner last night, you would use different language than if you were writing an email to your doctor describing what you had to eat last night. And so take that into account when you study the scripture. What genre is it? And, you know, as we progress in all of these series, we're likely to unpack more of these things and go a little bit deeper. But hopefully that helps you a little bit in at least paying attention and recognizing and not being too quick to jump to conclusions. Hope you learned something. Again, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Anyway, hope you're enjoying again. God bless you. Have yourself a great day.